U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, currently on a 4-day visit to India, addressed a joint press briefing with India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Sunday. The joint appearance after delegation-level talks at Hyderabad House may not have produced dramatic announcements, but it clearly signaled where India-US ties are headed amidst a turbulent geopolitical climate. Rubio reportedly described India as one of America's most important strategic partners. That messaging is significant at a time when the relationship has faced friction over trade tariffs, India's imports of Russian oil, visa concerns, and Washington's balancing act with Pakistan after the Pahalgam terror attacks.
India is an important strategic partner of the United States, one of our most important strategic partners in the world. It begins with the fact of our shared values. We are the two largest democracies in the world. And so obviously that in and of itself begins to align our interests simply because our leaders respond directly to voters and people on a regular basis.
Now, one of the key talking points was the recent tightening of U.S. visa rules affecting J1, F1 and H1B categories. Responding to concerns, Rubio said the changes were part of a broader overhaul of the American immigration system and not targeted specifically at India. The U.S. Secretary of State said Washington was responding to what he called a migration crisis, claiming more than 20 million illegal entries into the United States of America in the recent years. At the same time, Marco Rubio acknowledged the contribution of the Indian diaspora, calling Indian Americans one of the most successful and economically significant communities in the country.
The changes that are happening now, or the modernization of our migration system into the United States, is not focused, it's not India specific, it is global, it's being applied across the world. We are in a period of modernization, and I'll be frank and honest with you because it's important to talk about this. We've had a migratory crisis in the United States. This is not because of India, but broadly, we had over 20 million people illegally enter the United States over the last few years, and we've had to address that challenge. In addition to that challenge, and I think this is true for India, this is true for every country in the world, okay? Everything that you do as a country needs to be in your national interest, and that includes your immigration policy.
However, the moment that grabbed the most attention came when Rubio was asked directly about growing incidents of racism against Indians in the U.S. Momentarily caught off guard, Rubio defended America, saying every country has quote-unquote stupid people, and argued that isolated incidents should not define the U.S. He stressed that such remarks do not reflect American values and reiterated that Indian Americans remain among the country's most successful communities.
Every country in the world has stupid people. I'm sure there's stupid people here. There's stupid people in the United States that make dumb comments all the time. I don't know what else to tell you other than the United States is a very welcoming country. Our nation has been enriched by people who come to our country, have come from our country from all over the world, have become Americans, have assimilated into our way of life, and have contributed greatly.
Now, that exchange quickly exploded online with clips widely shared across social media platforms. Many viewers also picked up on Jaishankar's brief smile during the interaction, a moment that quickly became a talking point across social media. Jaishankar, meanwhile, stayed consistent with his long-standing national interest-first approach to foreign policy. The External Affairs Minister strongly defended India's energy strategy in that briefing, emphasizing the need for affordable and accessible energy for 1.4 billion people, an indirect but clear defense of India's continued purchase of discounted Russian oil.
Significant uptick in our energy imports from the United States. It's not new. It started out many years ago, but I think it's really picked up in the last year. And where India is concerned, look, this is an era of de-risking, and probably energy more than anything else requires de-risking. So a big country, if you are to do de-risking, looks at multiple sourcing. And for us, the United States has emerged as a very significant and reliable source of energy, as indeed have some other countries.
Now, on security, both sides struck a firm and united tone against terrorism. India also thanked the US for its cooperation in pursuing those linked to the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks.
India and the United States have common interests, but they also face shared challenges. Prominent among them is terrorism. Our position in that regard is very clear. It is one of zero tolerance. We appreciate the strong cooperation between concerned agencies of our two countries in this domain. I particularly recognized the extradition from the United States to India last year of a key planner of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. Our two countries will intensify cooperation bilaterally as also in relevant international forums. We will continue to collaborate closely on countering illegal trade in narcotics.
Now, the two leaders also highlighted growing cooperation in emerging technologies, critical minerals and artificial intelligence, sectors expected to define the next phase of the India-US partnership.
India joined the Pax Silica and is part of the Forge initiative. The AI Impact Summit in New Delhi in February highlighted the enormous potential of the India-US relationship, and we will naturally be encouraging our businesses dealing with AI. As India's semiconductor and AI capabilities advance, this cooperation will be even more prominent in days to come.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is on a 4-day visit to India that also includes participation in the upcoming Quad Foreign Ministers' meeting involving India, the US, Japan and Australia.
No one who has been stronger on this issue than President Trump. Okay. Multiple political leaders, multiple presidents of the United States have all said the same thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The only one who's tried to do anything and has actually done anything about it in a real way has been President Trump. So his commitment to that principle that they'll never have a nuclear weapon shouldn't be questioned by anybody. And the idea that somehow this president, given everything he's already proven he's willing to do, is going to somehow agree to a deal that ultimately winds up putting Iran in a stronger position when it comes to nuclear ambitions is absurd. That's just not going to happen. But our preference is to address this through a diplomatic means. And that's what we're endeavoring to do here. I think we've made some progress. I'm always cautious when I say that because you can agree to things on paper, they actually have to be implemented. You can agree to things in writing and then you actually have to go out and do it. And but I do think perhaps there is the possibility that over the next few hours, the world will get some good news, at least with regards to the Straits and with regards to a process that can ultimately leave us where the president wants us to be, and that is a world that no longer has to be in fear.
And now we have Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat, Major General Rajan Kochar, defense and geopolitical expert, and Patikrit Pain, foreign affairs expert, joining us. Thank you all of you for taking time out to be with us over here. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, I'm going to begin by asking you what Mr. Marco Rubio was just heard saying, the fact that maybe we can hear some good news in the next coming hours. Trump has also alluded to the fact that the deal is almost done. So are we having this conversation at a time when, after all of this, we might yet end up with a solution and the Strait of Hormuz can finally open?
Well, let's hope that the Strait of Hormuz can reopen. But you know, we have seen all this happen earlier. It is said by the US administration that we are very close to a deal, but then things don't work out. The fact remains that there have been some very vital differences between the Iranian side and the American administration. And these differences have been preventing any sort of a deal. For instance, Iran wants the United States to give it compensation for the damage. Iran wants the Americans to completely do away with their bases in the Gulf region. Then Iran wants to have control of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran wants the sanctions against itself to be lifted. And above all else, Iran doesn't want to give up its nuclear enrichment program. This is not something that the United States is willing to go along with. So although we hear statements like we are very close to a deal and that the respective positions are very close to each other.
Right.
But these are statements which we hear from the American side.
Okay. Fair
Have
enough.
we heard something like this from the Iranians?
Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
Okay, on that point, Major Rajan Kochal, may bring the conversation to you. You had Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian say the fact that Iran is not looking to have any nuclear weapons. That's the message that it wants to send out.
See, Krishna, it's very, very simple. If you don't want to have a nuclear weapon, why have you enriched to an extent of 60%, 450 kgs of your uranium? It's not for peaceful purposes, because peaceful purposes dictate to you a maximum enrichment of around 2 to 3%. So if you are going on trying to enrich and you are brought it to a level that it will take you only 2 to 3 weeks subsequently, whenever you want to make a nuclear bomb or a warhead, to come up to that 90%. And let me tell you, I was speaking to a nuclear scientist. He told me that even with 60% enrichment, you can have a neutron bomb. The efficacy of that bomb may be much reduced than a 90% one, but the damage will be substantial. So it is very, very clear that the United States is quite apprehensive that if we allow this uranium to remain in Iran, there is a strong possibility of Iran maybe at a later time developing it into a bomb. So I think that is one important concern. And why the US has got this concern is it is because of the apprehension. Netanyahu actually feels it, because this bomb, you see, ultimately it's going to be used against Israel only, because that is the only country as far as the adversarial relationship between Iran and Israel is concerned. It is not likely to be used against the US, because right now the ICBM capability is not there in Iran, but you never know in times to come. Even a DF-26 from China can be you manufactured and made available with the technology, and Iran can manufacture ICBM. And there was some news also in the war that one of its missiles could reach almost 8,000 kilometers. So I'm just trying to paint a picture here that this enrichment thing, I think, is very important for the United States. And that is why Donald Trump is insisting upon this time and again. So there will have to be some kind of security guarantees being built inside now, in case Iran has to walk the talk.
Yeah.
Because without that, it won't be possible.
Okay, Patikrit Pain, we're having this conversation at a time when Trump has directly alluded to the fact that the Strait of Hormuz will be open soon. If not anything, are we at least looking at an initial stage kind of a deal to be announced in the coming hours?
Well, Krishna, I look at it merely as an extension of the existing ceasefire.
Okay.
To presume that anything else is actually happening, probably it will be too far-fetched to presume that is going to happen. For example, number one, in this entire deal, where is Israel? What's the guarantee tomorrow Israel will not launch an offensive? Because even this present war that is ongoing, in that particular conflict, the first wave of strikes were done by Israel, not by United States. And there are these allegations that even United States was informed at the last moment by Israel when they actually launched that attack. So if you have a system where the agreements are between two parties, when there are more than two parties in a conflict, to presume that actually will be a foolproof thing will be a little too far-fetched. However, does it mean that we are unhappy about this deal? Not at all. Any kind of tranquility or extension of the ceasefire is absolutely a welcome step. I presume that the Strait of Hormuz will open up, but to expect that Iran has given up, that is something I'm a little uncomfortable about to presume. That has not yet happened, because the Americans themselves have not been able to accomplish or execute what they went out to achieve. For example, they wanted a regime change. Number two, even if you presume that the Iranians are going to give up the nuclear weapons, which is very highly unlikely, these are just statements been given by the Americans, and we know many times they have overestimated statements coming. There is an institutional knowledge system within Iran which is existing, which has the potential capacity to build those up all over again. That's one which you cannot discount. So all I'm trying to say is this, that if we presume that tomorrow Middle East is going towards tranquility and it's going to be another paradise, I think we are overestimating the whole thing. America's ability to conclude a war and actually bring peace has been very not very positive. It has been dismal, whether you talk about Vietnam or Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria, or whether it is Iran. If it works out, we all will be happy. But all I'm trying to say is that tomorrow, if the Strait of Hormuz opens up, doesn't mean that India should have a sigh of relief. India has to continue working on its backup plan. If that doesn't work out, then we don't know what tomorrow would happen. And the Iranians would want all the sanctions to be lifted. Are we waiting for that to happen? Are we to presume that America is going to let that happen? Iranians would want that if the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor happens, then they should be made an equal stakeholder in all kinds of economic activities like the Saudis and other Arab states. Would America do that? So you cannot presume that Iran will give up everything while the sanctions on Iran continues and only a few ones are loosened up. So we have to be a little more cautious, even while optimistic, when presuming that things are going to be better tomorrow in Middle East. If it happens, great. But let's have a backup plan. Back to you.